The United States has strong democracy and among the oldest one in the world. But this incident marks a black day in history of America and will remain a blot on democracy. The world watched as a mob of rioters seemed to roam free around inside, looting and vandalizing symbols of America's democracy. On January 6, armed and angry mob of Donald Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol Hill and clashed with police as Congress assembled to validate Joe Biden's presidential win. It was an attempt to overturn Donald Trump's defeat in 2020 presidential election.
We're here to stop the steal. We're here to support President Trump. He's the best president that has ever been in the United States of America.
January the 6th being wild, and something sparked inside me like I need to get my behind over there and see what's going on. It could be historical.
It was considered as one of the worst security breaches in U.S. history as pro-Trump protesters breached barricades and advanced into the halls of the Capitol building, smashing windows and brawled with police officers. The riot started after protesters in support of Trump's false claim gathered outside the Capitol, agitated by Trump's Save America rally.
We will not let them silence your voices. These people are not going to take it any longer. They're not going to take it any longer. All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen.
Several lawmakers, including members of the Republican Party, have blamed Trump for the violence that broke out in and around the Capitol. As critics have pointed out, the president directed his followers to head to Capitol Hill. The riot has led to the evacuation and lockdown of the Capitol, and resulted in 5 deaths, 4 rioters and 1 police officer. After this, many Trump's administration officials resigned. Soon after law enforcement officials were able to clear the building of rioters, the lawmakers reassembled a joint session to count electoral votes from the presidential election and officially confirm Joe Biden's victory.
The announcement of the state of the vote by the President of the Senate shall be deemed a sufficient declaration of the persons elected President and Vice President of the United States, each for the term beginning on the 20th day of January, 2021.
But after the protests, the biggest question mounted over security failure. Washington, D.C. is one of the most heavily policed cities in the world. The U.S. Capitol Police is a force that number around 2,000 officers, and their job is to protect the Congress. Criticism center on preparation by police and their failure to anticipate possible violence, despite evidence that radical pro-Trump supporters and other groups were openly discussing their plans online. It is not clear why Capitol Police were so unprepared for Wednesday's obvious threat. And while police might have been trying a softer approach, it is impossible to ignore the difference in law enforcement response with protests earlier this year. On Wednesday, a group of mostly white Trump supporters were allowed to take selfies and roam freely in the Capitol because they falsely believed the election were manipulated.
That I have. The Capitol was my man. ACAF.
But in Black Lives Matter, a diverse group of protesters was subjected to military-style control when they gathered to demonstrate against police brutality. As lawmakers investigate what went wrong on Wednesday, to many policing experts this was nothing short of an international embarrassment for American law enforcement and indictment of a police department that appeared to be caught completely unprepared. In the wake of deadly riots by pro-Trump supporters, Twitter suspended Trump's account. Facebook response has been somewhat less definitive, choosing to suspend Trump's account till Biden's inauguration on January 20, 2021. This shows the hypocrisy of these big tech's private companies. As a private company, Twitter is legally within its rights to banish anyone from the platform. It needs neither to be consistent about what it suspends nor why it does so. Such power is what enables social media companies like Twitter to profit enormously from hateful and abusive speech and to pander to authoritarian figures when it suits them. The same is true of Facebook. This incident was a disturbing warning for all the world's democracy. If this could happen in the US, it could happen anywhere. So it not merely is a US national issue but an attack on the very fundamentals of democratic structures and institutions. Many world leaders called for peace and an orderly transition of power, describing what happened as horrifying and an attack on democracy. In response to this violence, Donald Trump was impeached by the House of Representatives and charged with incitement of insurrection. President Trump has now become the first president in American history to be impeached twice. If the Senate convicted him before he leaves office on January 20th, he would be removed. In the coming weeks and months, Americans will debate the most effective ways to punish those who instigated the recent political violence. They will also consider why democracy requires the peaceful transfer of power and how to restore the trust in democracy of the many millions who have given their support to Donald Trump and still believe the lies of this demagogue. And the challenge it will face is to how to reject, punish and delegitimize the powerful enemies of democracy.